Okay, which do you think is more evocative? I asked Raph as we stood in his kitchen chopping onions in the morning light, both of us sniffling from the juice. He has no soul, like a cardboard cutout of a man, or he's pure appetite, like a sentient hungry hippo. He said, and paused in his chopping to consider, rolling the words around in his mind. Hippo. Libby had told me I could stay as long as I wanted. Seriously, I love company, she'd insisted. And even tiny rat dog Bella had been growing on me. But it wasn't a good idea to get too attached. So when Raph had gotten back into town the day before, I'd moved to his couch. He had tried to give me the bed, saying that he'd be rattling around in the kitchen early anyway. He was working on a new recipe for his fricassee de pollo. Of course he was. The glowing New Yorker review of his restaurant had gushed over everything else and then called his fricassee simple and homey, if not particularly complex. That had probably been driving Raph nuts. I'd refused his offer. I wasn't going to inconvenience him even more than I already was. Besides, it wasn't like Raph's old couch was going to ruin a blissful night of slumber. I hadn't been able to sleep well for weeks now, and my entrance into the world of crime a couple nights ago hadn't helped. At random flashes, I was back there, standing in the judge's office, waiting for my consequences. Raph had refused my refusal. After a 10-minute standoff during which we'd repeated each other's names in increasingly firm tones, while he carried my bag to the bedroom and I wrestled it back to the living room, he'd finally relented. Ha! I win, I'd said, parking myself on the couch. Or I do, he'd replied, his eyes crinkling, and let out his signature Raph cackle, a belly laugh that seemed all the heartier coming from his beanpole frame. That morning, I'd woken up early, going through the document photos we'd taken the other night, the notes from the stories that Margot had told me. The more I learned about the judge, the more incensed I became. This wasn't a Nicole Wu Martin situation. This man deserved what was coming to him. Raph had come out of the bedroom in a t-shirt and old running shorts, rubbing his eyes. Trade help for help? I'd asked. Oh, yeah, sure, Raph had said. Then he'd made us both some strong cups of coffee, and, with him unshaven and my hair unbrushed, we'd gotten to work. I can't get the flavors quite right, he'd said, throwing an onion at me. I caught it with one hand. Hey, look at those reflexes. That's it. I'm giving up writing for sports. Don't try to change my mind. He laughed and we started chopping, our shoulders almost touching thanks to his limited counter space. He cut his entire onion in the time it took me to slice a quarter of mine. We moved on to other ingredients. He handed me some firm, plump tomatoes to dice, then poured oil into a saucepan on the stove. It was all a little thrilling, cooking like this, since my typical mealtime routine had recently consisted of shoving fistfuls of cereal in my mouth, or, when I wanted to get really fancy, heating up some frozen Indian food from Trader Joe's. Now, as I explained what Margot had told me about the judge, though I left out the part about breaking and entering, Raph sautéed the onions, their pungent smell making my stomach rumble, and simmered the chicken in a sauce. He didn't need my help. If anything, I was slowing him down. But still, he made me feel as if he appreciated it. And I appreciated his help as he listened seriously to the takedowns I'd come up with, letting me know if they were withering or entirely toothless. At one point, in the close quarters, we bumped into each other and nearly knocked the saucepan off the stove. Raph caught it just in time. You know, you have a huge, beautiful restaurant kitchen, I said. You don't want to do the recipe testing there? Nah, I never do. Too much pressure that way. Makes me get in my head, having all those other people around. He took a spoonful of the sauce out of the pan and handed it to me. More or less cayenne?